All right, today's challenge is how do we find distance on the coordinate plane? Well, down the road, when you find distance, you will have a special thing called a distance formula. But for now, we're just going to talk about straight lines. That would be for diagonal lines down the road, your distance formula. So we're just going to talk about straight lines today. How do you find, or I should say vertical or horizontal? How do you find the distance between 2 points when they are straight vertical or straight horizontal from each other? So for instance, right here, how would you find this distance right here? What would you do? Well, to figure that out, let's first talk about my trips on Sundays to my church. All right, so when I start my trip on Sundays, we go to Indy for church, Fishers. So we start at exit 259 on the 69 road, right? The interstate. And we end up at exit 204 down in Fishers. Now, if I were to ask you how many miles or what's the distance that we travel on 69 to get to my church, what would you do? What would you tell me? Well, I have a feeling most of you look at those numbers and you say, well, 55. You drive 55 miles on that road. Well, how did you know that? And you would say, well, I subtracted. 259 minus 204 gives us 55. And you would be right. We're going to use the same concept to find distance on the coordinate plane. If you notice, both of these dots are at 3. So they line up vertically. But one of them is at 4 as far as its height, and the other one is at -3. So remember last slide when we talked about subtracting to find the distance, we did 259 minus 204 to figure out that there were 55 miles in between them. Well, we're going to do the same thing with these numbers. We're going to go 4 minus -3 to figure out how many units there are in between 4 and -3. Now remember we said minus minus becomes plus plus. So that tells us we have 7 units. Now what happens if you get them mixed up? What if you don't do 4 minus -3? What if you accidentally do -3 minus 4? Well, when you are at -3 and you subtract 4, that gets you to -7. Is it possible to have a distance of -7? No. Maybe in physics later in your life you'll hear about distances that are -7. But for right now, we're just going to say, no, that would be take the absolute value and it would still give you a distance of 7 units in between those two, okay? It just means you were essentially going from bottom to top instead of from top to bottom, okay? So either way, that would give you a distance of 7 units. Let's try one more example and then we'll be done. All right, so this example doesn't even have a graph. What we notice here is that they're both at the same y value. So we know that they would be on the same height. It's just their their right or left that would be different, right? So I'm having trouble with words today. Come on, Miss McNutt, you can do it. So there's a 16 and a 4. Those are the ones we're going to subtract, right? So we're going to do 16 minus 4 equals 12. Okay, so their distance then is 12 units. Okay, so you, on your IXL lesson, if you want to try it, you can. Otherwise, you can just stick with these notes. But on your IXL, you would just look at, basically you could count if you wanted to on the coordinate plane how far apart they were, or you could subtract to the numbers that were different. Okay? Good luck, and please remember to bring your notes to class tomorrow. Bye!